Been raising orchids too for about 35, 40 years. So I got some informational pass outs. I've got some catalogs up front here from Logis I've dealt with. They're a reputable organization. I'm not a shill for them, by the way. All right, so I appreciate if you take one with you, and it's all right, you can take it with you. Just don't order using my customer ID number, because I got a shipment last March to my house, and I'm like, what the hell is this? So using my investigative skills as a cop, I called the company and found out who the person was. And unfortunately, she had some issues, mental issues or whatever. And she used my customer ID number. So I was able to finally get the plant potted up for her, believe it or not, and sent to her son, which lives up the street from me. But just don't use my customer ID number if you're going to order stuff. Okay. Let's hope this works now. Okay. Oops, banged it a little too hard. All right, so most of the houseplants we know of today on the market are either tropical or semi-tropical. You don't bring plants in that are hardy for the area. I have a great succulent collection, plus hens and chicks. That's another one of my favorite. My mother's favorite, hens and chicks. I got tons of them all over the place. They're not hardy, and they're not frost resistant. And usually they grow in containers on the inside, although I've seen some nice garden, like I've been to Longwood Gardens. Holy smokes. It's like a kid in a candy store when I got there. So most of them are in leaf or close to year round. People have contacted me what they do with these tropical hibiscus. They want to save them, they're expensive, they want to save them, so they drag them indoors. And the first thing that happens when in a 2-week period, all the leaves drop off. They're frantic. I'm like, I tried to save them. Right, sorry. That the plant has to adjust itself to different conditions. And outside with the air currents and the temperature and humidity are different from the inside. So that's why that happens. So we have needs for growing plants, light, temperature, medium, water, and fertility. We'll talk about light first. Just referring to my notes here, so I don't want to get this wrong. All right. Low light situation would be considered to be about 50 to 250 light candles. Okay, sort of like a north window. No direct sunlight, but nice light. And what plants can survive at that? You've got the, use the colloquial term for it, mother-in-law's tongue. Okay, Sansevieria, which they just recognized as closer to Dracaena. So they dropped Sansevieria and used Dracaena, which is confusing to all of us enthusiasts. I've got close to 20 plants, different types, anything from, and they all survive in this particular light situation. They will not thrive, but they'll survive. They will take sunlight. They will take, we'll get into this. I'm going to cover most of that to tell you where to get the best lighting situation. Medium light, anywhere from 250 to 1,000-foot candles. Any photographers in here? No? Okay, because you have your stop settings for different light situations. I'm not a photographer, so I might be talking, you know. And what will take, you'll have some orchids, Phalaenopsis, which do not like direct sunlight because it scorches the leaves. They will take the 250 to 1,000. Usually, if you're south-facing window, you want to be about 3 foot away from the window where it gets a little less light. Not in the wintertime, but the sun is low on the horizon, so it comes straight in. On a good day, my sunroom, which is 10 by 20, will probably heat up to about 80 degrees. And it could be 30 degrees outside, but if the sun's out, it gets heated in there real quick. And the last one would be the highlight, 1,000+ foot candles, and that would be cacti and some succulents. Okay. Temperature. Most houseplants will tolerate temperatures. My sunroom drops down to when it's really cold out at night, and of course it's with a lot of windows, so you get a lot of heat loss. It'll drop down to 57 degrees on a really bad night, but I have a little gas heater that keeps it from freezing, and it would if I didn't have it. They'll tolerate up to 80 degrees, 85. Sometimes in the summertime without the windows open, it'll get up to 90 real quick. Okay, which is something I really don't want to have happen. There are plants that are house plants that take 90 degrees, but we don't want to expose them too much to that high temperature. Okay, media. I'm assuming they're talking about what soil you would use. And it ranges everything from a very fast draining soil, such as cacti and succulent soil and citrus soil. You can get in bags. Okay, it's very fast draining, which is what you want. You don't want a lot of water hanging around the roots. Okay, medium, any house plant that would could be considered not to be well draining. Regular potting soil you could use. Specialty soils such as cactus soil. Oh, we already went over it. Cactus soil, regular medium soil. Specialty soils such as orchid mix, okay, which is basically bark, charcoal, and perlite, which allow fast draining, okay, which is the same kind of, almost the same kind of stuff that plants get in the native environment, okay, where they, my arm is a tree and there's a little crook here. That's where all the leaves and detritus and stuff like that, and then an orchid seed gets started in there with the help of mycorrhizal bacteria. And next thing you know, this thing comes out of, starts growing in the medium. So it gets rained every day, but it drains real quickly. Okay, so it doesn't hang on the roots. Water. I can only talk about the water that I get. It's city water, which has chlorine in it, okay, which is no problem for me because I just agitate the water, and the chlorine, as you know, is very volatile. It just escapes. Anybody have a pool in here? One lady in the back. Okay, as you know, you keep adding chlorine to it every day. Okay, why? Because it evaporates. It's very volatile. Okay, now when you guys who have the type of water that needs the salt, okay, well water, okay, that's a different problem altogether. We'll discuss that when we go into the orchids. You might have to just collect the rainwater as best you can to take care of those particular situations. Fertility. It's kind of hard to get any kind of soil mix out there now that doesn't have 6 months worth of fertilizer in it, okay? If you're doing something like a dish garden, or perhaps you put it in a bell jar or something like that, you really don't want that plant to start growing to excess, because that's not the whole point. The whole point is to keep it. So you really have to look around for any kind of soil that does not have fertilizer in it. Aspects of light, like quality, duration, and intensity. At this particular time, I'm getting ready for my wild native plants, and I'm growing at this particular time 3 different types. And light quality is very important for germination, okay, in these plants. It's also very important for house plants too, the quality of light. You can grow house plants successfully under lights now. And when I first started years ago, incandescent bulbs. But as you probably know, incandescent bulbs are hot and they burn if they're too close to the foliage. So thankfully today, we progressed from the incandescent to the fluorescent, which was okay, and I used that. Now I use the LED. It's amazing the growth that you get out of LED lights. And you get the ones that are have the blue and the red shifts in the light. Those are the most appropriate for plants. That's what they absorb. Okay, and they reflect back the rest of the spectrum into your eyes, which is basically a combination of green. So blue and red is the thing. Okay, duration. Some plants are, like strawberries. If you grow strawberries outside, you have the June bearing. Well, the reason for that is because that's the maximum amount of light duration it gets in the summertime. And they're all pretty much, except the new varieties, are pretty much dependent on the amount of light, even dark, to develop fruit. Light intensity, I already covered that with foot candles, unless anyone has a question regarding that. Done? Yes, ma'am. They work for everything. They work for everything now. You can put them anywhere. They clip on regular lights. They have big tubes, and you get the big tubes, and I got the tubes from Amazon. They're 2 tubes like this long, and it has a different spectrum now, because the red and the blue are okay, but you want the intensity of the hot yellow. That's another color that they really are good for. Does that answer your question at all? Need that Joe of coffee. Oh, God. Bring back days when I was working midnight shift. Okay. So we're pretty much this. If anyone has a question about the blue and the red, photosynthesis and yellow and green are important mainly to reflect away from lights. That's why plants appear green. Why do we even want plants in our house? Anybody give me a good reason why? Okay, that's good. NASA did a study, believe it or not, Sansevieria was one of the most efficient purifiers of the air, at least according to their. I got 15, you do nothing for me. Okay. All right. Any questions regarding that? All right. Sunlight. Well, say if it wasn't for the sun, we wouldn't have life. So, like I said, the sun comes streaming through the windows in wintertime for me because of the sun being low on the horizon. Okay, when it comes up in the wintertime. Summertime directly overhead, wintertime slightly to the east, and then the summer or the fall would be to the west. Okay, so you've got the sun, and believe it or not, when we talk about orchids and you're going to put them outside, be very careful. They've been inside all that time and they love the outside. But if you put them in direct sunlight, they'll burn the hell out of them. And it won't take long for damage to occur. Because you have to remember, most of these things in the wild are basically underneath the canopy and are protected from extended sunlight. So you need to be careful about that. Okay, fluorescent, cool, white, warm. Okay, this is all changed now. I don't even think we have LED situation in this. We don't. Okay, so my recommendation is if you're going to do something inside and you want to grow something inside and you need extra light, go with the LEDs. First of all, they're warm to the touch. They're not hot. Okay, so you don't have that problem. Incandescent bulbs, I wouldn't recommend them at all. That's my personal opinion. But we all know the phrase, opinions are like, everyone's got one. Okay. Light duration. Yeah, 16 hours worth of light. Yeah, I have them on now. So when I wake up at 5, I put them on. And when I go to bed at 9, I turn them off. So I think I get enough there. Some plants may yellow if too much light. Sometimes that's not basically the light but too close to the bulb or too close to the tube might cause that problem. Okay. $16 to germinate. I get a real strong response with 16 hours worth of sun or this light on my seedlings that come up and I put out at my house and the library, which I'm the gardener up there in Monroe Township. So yeah, I get good response from them with the LEDs. Like I said, I used to be set up with fluorescent and originally way back in the day, incandescent. And it burned the hell out of everything unless you had it like 5 foot away or something like that. Then you weren't getting much light at all. Okay, so that, yes.
You said to germinate, but what if that's established plant?
Well, the same thing applies. I mean, you know, you're getting forceful growth in the beginning, which is what you want. Okay. And once they reach a point where they no longer can, there's no room for them to grow anymore, I moved them into a situation with sunroom and I put them outside and stuff like that. Okay.
And I set them for 8 hours a day. And I can see a big difference already, but I didn't know
What kind of plants do you have under the light?
most of them are, well, the reason I bought it was for desert rose.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I just kept using the leaves on.
Yeah, I had a desert rose up at the library too, and I lost it.
Yeah, but this made a big difference, but most of the rest of it sucked. But I
Be-
can see a difference in everything.
Just be careful with desert rose. It is like a magnet for scale.
For what?
Scale. We'll go over insects at the end, okay? But be real careful. Yeah, desert rose are indoors. They come in beautiful, beautiful. Fine. You'd be surprised how insects make their way into your house. They come off your clothing. Well, that's true too. I mean, you're going to have a hermetically sealed room. If you go into that room, you're bringing stuff in there you don't even aware of. Believe me. Okay, talk about long day plants. Flower after exposure to long days is petunias and short day plants, chrysanthemums and poinsettias. As a matter of fact, just the poinsettia alone, they have to have a night without light whatsoever in order to set the bracts. Everyone knows that they're not the real flowers, right? Those yellow little things in the middle, those are the flowers. Those bracts are just leaves, exactly. And chrysanthemums, because they bloom in the fall, that's why they need short days to set the flower buds. Okay, well, that makes sense. Season of the year. I don't review this thing every day. Intensity decreases with decreasing day length. Gee, that's really logical. Location in the home. Okay, there's some beneficials. I've had people, placement is very important. I had one woman that called me up and she wanted to know why the plants are dying. They're close to the light, all that kind of stuff. And I said, look, I said, not knowing the situation, you want me to come over and take a look where you got them? Oh, yeah, please. Where do you think she had the plants? Sitting on top of a radiator. And I said, you know what's happening is that the heat is drawing them out of the leaves. That's what's yellowing your leaves. They just don't, you can't water them enough to replace the moisture level in the leaves. I said, you got to get them away. Either that or put something on top of the radiator to protect them. We talk about window exposure, north, lowest intensity. Like I said, you could grow cyclamen, you could grow Sansevieria. They'll take it. I mean, it won't flourish because I have a whale tail Sansevieria, which is a beautiful plant. And in my sunroom, it's just went crazy out there. But if I put it on the inside, I'd get probably 1/3 to 1/4 of the growth that I would get putting it in a full sun situation. And they can take full sun. They're from Africa anyway. East and west, the east will get, as you know, the sunrise until the sun comes up overhead, and then you lose it. Okay, and then you'll get the west. Okay, the sunlight will be less because of the fact that it's low on the horizon. Same thing with when the sun rises. So you could put a Phalaenopsis orchid in an east or west situation because it's getting sun, but it's not as intense as midday. And south, the brightest, the warmest, I have my Phalaenopsis and my orchid plants about 2.5 to 3 foot away from the window. So the intensity is a lot less than I would normally encounter. And they figure 2,000 plus foot candles, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's great for cactus and succulents. They love that stuff. But we'll go over those individual needs when we get to the plant. Okay. Okay, it goes over this, what I just discussed, part shade, low light, up to 80 inches away. Okay. I don't get a tape rule and go out there and measure if it's 80 inches away. Okay, wood stove may provide wide fluctuations in temperature and stress to plants. Well, that's true. And don't put a plant on top of a wood stove because you're not going to have it very long. Okay, yeah. Let me talk about cool and warm breezes from doors, windows, or HVAC ducts. What's interesting to note about that is you don't want to put certain plants which are susceptible to cold breezes or cool breezes. Phalaenopsis orchids, which are on sale because they're in bloom right now. You see them wrapped up in plastic? Hurry to your car, especially when you get 36-degree weather out there. People buy them, guys buy them rather than roses. Oh, I got you this orchid. Oh, okay, a couple days later, the buds just, they fall off. They turn black and they fall off. I had a guy in one of these big box stores. He was buying one for his wife or whatever. I just idle conversation with the guy. I said, look, I said, do me a favor, will you? Have the clerk up there put a bag over top of this thing. This is before they had those big collars of clear plastic. And I said, have them do it for you. Otherwise, you're going to lose all the buds you have on it because it's like 22 degrees outside. Several years ago at the library, we had a, quote, orchid expert come, and she was late by half an hour. Okay, so I had to sit there and just go through the thing. And all these people bringing in these plants, and I'm like, why? Why did you bring these plants in? You just exposed them to all that cold weather out there, 22 degrees, because it was 7 o'clock at night in February, unlike the February we have now, where it's 65 degrees during the day. One of the questions was, this woman had all these aerial roots coming out. She says, can I trim them back? I'm just like, oh God. No, you cannot trim them back. They are essential for the plant. Okay. So, in fact, they found me more interesting than that because she got really esoteric with her information. All these species orchids that nobody was ever going to get. They're like $125 a plant. You're going to pay that much for an orchid that you don't know anything about orchids? I don't even buy a plant like that. Okay. Growing medium. Okay, so we have the quick draining we talked about with the cactuses, citrus, and other plants that need a quick draining medium. Specialized fibrous root systems. Well, you know, you have to understand that some plants, like Tisland, which is the air plants, and the nice, beautiful bromeliads that have that beautiful, beautiful flower stalk that lasts for like, I don't know, 3-4 months, sometimes 5 months. Okay, that's the one where they have the vase-like thing and they have water collects in there. And then you got tropical frogs that come in there, lay their eggs in there and hatch their eggs. This happens. Mosquitoes too. So there's some food for the frogs when they finally develop. They do desire well-drained soil with fibrous root system because they have nice root system. You have to gauge it with what your plant, see what your plant's doing. If like you're having leaf loss, you could be overwatering or you could be underwater. And the only way to tell that is I used to have a hydrometer, which I put in the plant and would tell me, it would go down 6 and it would tell me how wet it is. Well, that didn't last long. Just use your finger. Get down to the second digit if you have to. If it's moist down there, don't water. If it's not, and it's dropping leaves, water the damn thing. The thing's screaming out to you, give me some water, please. All right, we talked about at the last one, no medium at all. Well, we'll go into Tislandia because that's one of my favorites. The air plants. You ever see them? Beautiful blooms and everything like that. They do not collect water or nutrients from their roots. Their roots are just for anchor to a certain, like for instance, a wood plaque or something like that, or just in the air. Well, every week, every 7 to 10 days, I take them and I just put them in a nice vat of water, warm water, by the way, not cold, warm water, and soak them for 30 minutes. They have specialized cells that absorb water on their leaves. That's how they survive. That's where they collect their water, not from the roots. Provide mechanical support for the plant. Yeah, there's some plants. I've got this pothos, and she just goes crazy. She's like, it's called neon, and the leaves are neon yellow green. Beautiful plant, but it needs support because it just climbs. Okay, I had another one called granite, and it used a wall to climb up. Unfortunately, I had to paint the wall, so I had to pull this thing apart, and then it had all the root. As it had roots, the aerial roots adhered to the wall, you pull them off, and then you got all this markings. Kind of neat, but okay. Provide oxygen to the roots. So if you overwater a plant to the point where it's just soggy, and there are some plants that require that. Soggy, you'll kill it because oxygen can't get to the roots. Okay, that usually happens when the plant itself is root bound. Now there are plants, Clivia for one thing, that this thing is just throwing pups all over the place. It just loves to be root bound. It's just the way the plant is. I have one at the library. It's humongous. I took a cutting from my plant, and it's like 3 times the size of the parent plant. Everything grows up at the library inside. It's just phenomenal. Monroe Township, Williamstown. Okay, favorable microorganisms. Okay, you want that in all soil contains microorganisms. Okay, I heard one estimate that there's certain like 1 million organisms in a teaspoonful of soil. Well, as you probably know, if there's any science teachers in here, bacteria and viruses and fungi outweigh everything else on the planet. You can drill a mile down into a salt mine and find bacteria growing there. You can go out to the hot springs in the national parks out west that are close to boiling, and there's bacteria growing in there. So if you extrapolate that, which is possible here under favorable conditions, what is it like for the rest of the planets and the moons in our solar system, let alone the galaxy? So I think life exists everywhere. And why? Because life matters and life will survive. Okay, garden loam, natural soil, pasteurized before use indoors. Okay, One of my other favorite subjects is composting. I compost everything, with the exception of bone, with the exception of meat, with the exception of baked goods or milk or anything like that. All vegetables and rinds and everything else, I compost everything. And I have some beautiful soil at home. I've been doing this for 20 some years. There's just no sense adding this to the trash, having it taken to a landfill. I collect leaves every fall for my compost piles. People are putting them in plastic bags. So what do you think when the township collects your trash and puts it in the back of a thing? You think they're going to separate it? Hell no. They're going to take it out to a dump and landfill it in the plastic bags. That's free gold, man. That's brown gold. Bag potting soil. Okay, you can add things to it. Next, the third and the fourth one, perlite and vermiculite. Perlite does not absorb water, so it helps with quick draining. Okay, so if you've got average soil mix and you want to plant a cactus, add some perlite to it. If you want to retain moisture, vermiculite, which vermi, I believe in Latin means worm. Okay, that will absorb water. It's a great medium vermiculite for like storing bulbs and stuff like that. Dig them up like elephant ears. You put them in a vermiculite, they'll survive all winter long in a nice, cool, dark place. Sand, well, that's logical. Don't use ocean sand because why? It contains salt. Peat moss. There's a controversy now about peat moss. Okay, you've got these bogs that they dig the peat from. First of all, they drain the bog, let it dry out a little bit, and then they collect it. This is a limited resource. It takes approximately 11,000 years for 1 inch of peat moss to accumulate. So when they go down 6 foot, how many millennia are we talking about? Sphagnum moss, okay. It's being created. You could get that from a sphagnum bog or whatever, and I have several bogs in my yard. That's another, happened there? Oh, no. Sorry, I lost the page here. This thing's talking back to me. I don't know what the hell happened. Any questions so far? The thing is talking back to me. Last thing I want to hear my own voice. Yes, sir. Yeah. No, no. Only the ones that are really chlorine sensitive, such as orchids and stuff like that. Yeah. I agitate the water and allow the volatile chemicals to come out of the water. Well, I got city water. I mean, well water doesn't have that problem. You add salt. I don't know anybody have well water? Okay, maybe you can answer the question for me. Why do you use salt? I'm sorry. Takes the iron out of the water. Okay. Yeah, you know, you don't want to accumulate a lot of iron in your blood because you get hemochromatosis, is it? Something like that? Well, yeah, they survive on almost anything because it drains right through. But you don't want that in your body taking a glass of water and accumulate. Next thing you know, you got kidney stones. Okay. Where was I? Okay. Composted pine bark. Yeah, ferns and orchids. You could pick that up in a bag at any big box store. You know, I use the big box store term because a lot of these nurseries that I used to frequent over the years, 40, 50 years, they're out of business. They can't compete with the big box stores. So if you know a nursery and you like it, try to go there first. If you can't get it there, maybe the big box store has it. Got to keep these small business people in, still business. The only one I really know that's still around is Triple Oaks out there in Franklinville. She's got everything in, I've actually worked for her, Lorraine Kiefer. Her son might be teaching a class here too. And you did already? And yeah, she's getting up in the years now. Well, we all get old. But she's such a fine person, knows everything about anything. Containers for media. Okay, yes, plastic is durable and light. It does crack very easily, especially if you're up potting. And the only good thing about plastic is that you don't have to water so much because it's sealed off. I use unglazed clay for almost everything, unless I can't get it in a pot size anymore. I've got some huge clay pots, which now are expensive as all get out. Well, terracotta, yeah. And I will tell you one thing right now, there is, these big box stores now are getting pots. They're getting pots that are made in China and are thin and flimsy and not worth the money. I was out at a big box store just a couple of weeks ago, and I was trying to get some big clay pots for some Sansevieria that I repot at the library. I grabbed it and it just fell apart. I was like, what the hell is this? Now, my pots that I accumulated over 50 years. So I got pots from Italy, and they're stamped Italia or made in Italy. And they're thick, they're durable. I would suggest if you're going to use them outside, like in the summertime, flower pots and stuff like that, take the soil out, put it in a shed, and let them dry out. Don't leave them outside because they will crack eventually. I cleaned them out there. I cleaned them out. I got a tub I filled with a combination of chlorine, bleach, and water. And I soaked them, rubbed them, and put them away. Most of the plants in the library are all pots, clay pots. Donation from me. I wound up getting a plastic pot, but it's one of those ones that are plastic. So I think maybe that's ecologically safe. I don't know. But that's all I could get. And it was like 1/3 the cost of a pot that's a clay pot. You could spend a lot of money on glazed clay. You go over to some of these places. There's one in, what the hell is it? In County on Sickliver Road. They got these pots, they're like 75% off. So I go up to the pot, it's $125. I'm like, yeah, is that my pre-75 cost or post-75 cost? I don't know. Well, I'm not paying that much for a pot. It's ridiculous. Yeah, Bloomers is a place I haven't been here in about 2 or 3 years, but yeah, they've got some nice collections of pots and stuff like that. Okay, watering is important for all. I'm sorry, sir. Yeah. I was told about that 2 weeks ago. And then a shame. And I remember Ledden's. I used to go to Ledden's. Oh my God, I used to get all my gladiola bulbs there and everything else that I needed for the summertime. Yeah, they just can't compete anymore. Ledden's. Rourke's, yeah, Rourke's on Route 77, is it? I don't know why, and then they're going to be a Kubota. What's the name? Farm equipment?
Kubota.
I'm not either, but, you know, someone told me, go down there, they got all these clay pots on sale. Okay, I don't need any more clay pots. Because if I get a clay pot, I gotta fill it. And if I gotta fill it, I gotta drag it in and put it in the sunroom. No, there's no room anymore. All right, as you know, we are all 90% plus water. So the better water that we drink, the more healthier we are. What with that train wreck out in Ohio, right? All the water, the street, the fish are dying. We never learn. You wouldn't want to be drinking that water because I come back to haunt you. Okay, this phrase at the bottom, turgidity, okay, that just means that the stiffness of the spine. If you've noticed the plants will wilt, okay, that's because they don't have enough water to support the growth and keep it erect. Humidity, believe it or not, I've got cactus and succulents in with the orchids. And everybody's doing well. You figure, right? Your internet connection is unstable. Must be. Okay. There are plants that take high humidity. Orchids are one, ferns are another. Is susceptible to fungal diseases. I've never really encountered that. My humidity is approximately anywhere from 35 to 50% in the sunroom. Does well for me. You know, I can always go there with a spritz bottle if things start to look a little bit peaked. Low humidity, great for cacti and succulents, not so good for foliage plants. That's why my Sansevieria collection is basically all in the sunroom. In fact, some of them are coming up for flowering. Believe it or not, they do flower. But you'll find out when it flowers, it smells sickeningly sweet, like somebody dumped a load of honey in your sunroom. Flower and buds drop off. Okay, that can happen to orchids too. My orchids are doing fine. Transpiration. Okay, so the rain comes down, or your watering can waters the plant, goes through the roots, through the stem, down into the bottom of the receptacle that you might have to collect the excess water. I take all of the succulents in the library and at home. I water them by taking them in, watering and let it drain in the sink. Don't let it accumulate in the catch container, sauce. Why? Because I don't want to deal with soft growth on cacti and stuff. And one thing that will kill them more than anything, too much water. I put them on a water schedule once a month in the sunroom. That's it, once a month. Maybe once every 3 weeks in the summertime. Cacti, I leave it once a month, all year round. They do very well. Sansevieria, the same thing. They get watered once a month. But that's interesting, the Christmas plants you're talking, yes, they are cactus. Schomburger, there's the Thanksgiving cactus, and then there's the Christmas cactus, and there's an Easter cactus. Okay, 3 different genera. Okay, so the water goes from the stems out through the leaves, and there's these things called stoma. They're like pores. Okay, when they want to hold water, they close off. Hot conditions will close it off. At night, they'll open up, allow the egress of or the exit of the water and oxygen, taking carbon dioxide in the daytime. Okay. Any questions on that page? I'm trying to move along because we got a lot of plans to cover. Okay, does anybody need, it says do not stick to a schedule. It works for me. That's all I can say. I don't have any problems with scheduling. And I don't give a damn what this thing says. No. I mean, I know what they're trying to tell you, you know. If someone's watering a plant once a week and, oh my God, I gotta water it. It's the week's due, you know. They're out there watering, it could open. Okay? You find out the conditions of your plant. Like I said, you put your own personal hydrometer down into the soil, okay? But if you got plants like succulents and you got plants, cacti, stuff like that, once a month's fine. They will not die. All right, so pretty much plant type, obviously, you're not going to water cacti, you would container medium, plastic versus unglazed clay. The reason I use clay, unglazed clay, is because I hear or I feel the coolness on the side of the clay because it's sucking the water away from the roots. Okay, if you have a foliage plant, you might consider plastic for that. Medium type sand, peat moss will hold water. Room temperature. If you're on top of that radiator, you're going to have to move that bad boy every 6 hours for obvious reasons. Canopy size. I have this humongous bird of paradise that has 8 children. We can't find them in the library anywhere. It just disappeared. No, just kidding. This thing is huge. It'll never flower indoors, but people are like, what the heck is that? It's a bird of paradise plant. Looks like a banana. It's in the same family. And it's huge. It's tops up to the roof of the room. Soil color, yes, light soil or light colored soil will indicate dryness. Touch, feel if wet. Okay, leaf turgidity. Okay, well, you know what that means. Relative weight. If you want, you can pick up the container. If it's lighter than when you first watered it, you might have to water again. All right. Does anybody have any questions about this one? Watering problems? No? Right.
You give it a good soak though,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then just keep dumping.
Give it a good soak. Give it a good soak. Yep, I do that. And I do that for the Sansevieria too. I let the water run through it. I mean, if you're going to water, well, but then don't. Okay. Case in point, everybody here of a variety of plant, might be in this thing here, lithops, living stones, they call them. Okay. These dead boys could take drought for 6 to 7 months without a problem. Okay. That's just the way we've been able to survive in the African deserts. Thing about that is, I got one at a rock garden thing about a year ago, and it was doing great. Then I moved these elephant ears called lime zinger close to it. When they love water. Okay, lithops do not love water. So the leaves were hanging close to it. Before I knew it, it was dripping water from the leaves onto the lithops. So the lithops rotted out. So these are the things you just don't use until it's too late. So it's like watering it every day. So naturally it drowned on me. Yes, soil shrinkage. Soil over time pulls apart from the edge of the pot, runs down the edges and out of the pot. Time to repot the plant. Yeah, I know. When you see that the soil actually gets sucked in, well, see, the plant is getting from fertilizer and from water the ingredients that it needs, but also takes nutrients out of the soil. So eventually, if it's not a plant that loves to be root bound, you're going to have to up pot. Okay, we've talked about this before. No need to go over this. Okay, soft water. I don't think we have a problem in New Jersey with soft water. Usually use hard water with these wells and stuff like that. They water softener. They take the hard water out of the ground and they soften it with the salt and stuff like that. I think. If I speak out of turn and if someone's got a well to correct me, raise your hand. I have no experience in this well water thing. Municipal water, yes. Fluorine and chlorine are very volatile gases, and if you agitate the water, you won't have this. You can also, if your faucet has an aerator in it, a spray situation there, that's another way to put it into a container, to spray it in there, and the agitation of the spray will actually decrease the chlorine and fluorine. Otherwise, you'll get the leaf tip burn. Okay, yes, peace lily, dumb canes. You know what I call them, dumb canes? Oh, the beautiful leaves, speckled yellow and green and stuff like that. It's because if you take the leaf and put it in your mouth, the irritant will make you dumb. Won't be able to talk. So that's why you want to keep it away from children, dogs, and pets. Because they chew on the leaves. That's why they call it pumpkin. That's a thing you could do. You could set it in a bucket, leave for 24 hours, and most chlorine will dissipate out of the water. Like I said, just agitate the water. Just get your, kitchen whisk. You don't use it anymore. You put it in a bucket, turn it around. Fluorine will not dissipate. I'm not sure if Monroe has fluorinated water or not. To be honest with you, I've never really noticed. Anybody else have experience with fluorine? It's fluoridated? Thank you, Adam's science teacher. I don't think they put that much to be harmful to us, do they? No, it's probably parts per billion or something like that, right? Submersion. I do my orchids, I submerge also with the bromeliads and tislandias. Staghorn ferns, beautiful staghorn fern. It was beautiful. It was massive. And then I got the dreaded, what's his name on him? The scale. And I had to put it outside and let it die. Okay, I got another one though, but it's a scale attractor, and scales are to orchids and everything else. We'll go over scale. It's my nemesis. Top watering allowed to drain. Okay, yeah, bottom saucer. Okay, if you've got a plant that does not like wet feet, you're going to want to take it to the sink, let it drain. I do that with all plants that do not like to have wet feet. Wick works great for violets. It works for African violets and gesneriads. Anybody know what that is? It's an African violet. Beautiful blue flowers. Okay, primary NP. Okay, the N is nitrogen and soft tissue growth, such as leaves, stuff like that. One of the crops plant leans required a lot of nitrogen. Corn will leach nitrogen right out of the ground. It loves nitrogen. Why? Because it's grass and it grows fast. Same thing with bamboo. It loves nitrogen. Suck it right out of the soil. So it's good for green leaves. The potassium is good for the root system. Okay. And the last one, potash, for flowering. other nutrients that you get, obviously carbon, which everything on Earth is made of, oxygen, hydrogen. I guess that S is silicon, sulfur, which we all know stinks like all get out. Calcium, iron, manganese. Okay, a lot of potting or fertilization material, and I had a little cheat note. I might use a prepared fertilizer for cactus would be 176. 1 being the low number, nitrogen, to growth in cactus and succulents. Okay. Bromeliads will be 17, 8, 22. As you can see, 8 is a low number because it doesn't need roots. It doesn't take nutrients from the source, but it does. And I soak them too. I soak them for a half an hour. Phalaenopsis might be a 30, 10, 10. Okay. Cymbidium orchid, which is a specific ground orchid, which I have one myself, it actually has a requirement of 30, 10, 10 is a normal fertilizer. And then between the months to February with flower stalk, it's 6, 30. So these are specific for a particular plant that you have. I now get most of my stuff online, Amazon. It's just quick and they've got it. Okay. Any questions regarding that? And you can get some things that will have the other nutrients in them. They'll actually say it on the bottle. And please, this is very important. Please read the requirement. Tablespoon per gallon of water. When I was on the helpline years ago, I had a guy in a frantic panic. Oh my God, I listened to this dumb college guy. He's telling me put this amount of. I said, whoa. He had repeaters. And the guy told him the wrong formulation, wrong ratio, and he didn't read the thing. So he gave this Ming Aurelia, which he said he had for 30 years, and it dropped leaves like it was dying. I said, well, yeah, can you help me? Can you tell me what to do? I said, get off the phone, take the plant out, take it outside, because I think it was in the summertime. And I said, just spray off all the oil. Repot, put soil in there, and don't fertilize for 6 months. Well, he called me. He didn't call me back. He called again about 6 months later, and he said, whoever that guy was, he knew what he was talking about because it came back to life like no tomorrow. It's like I tell people all the time, yes, a tablespoon per gallon of water is good. 2 tablespoons per gallon of water, not so good. Same thing with pesticides. Don't use more than indicated on the package. Read the package. Okay, if you're working with what's that stuff, the herbicide that we all use, Roundup. If it says, it gives you a cup, if it says this much per gallon of water, don't, wow, it'll work like all get out. Yeah, well, the problem is if there's overspray and you inhale it, 30 years later you're diagnosed with lymphoma. You don't want that. Okay, I gear up for that. I only spray early morning when there's no wind at all. I wear boots, which are easily, sprayed off. I wear a mask and I wear goggles. I look like a guy stepped off of a flying saucer. Now, I'm taking precautions. I want to be around. Yeah. You can. All things, a little fertilizer. I wouldn't fertilize it often. We did it again. I think it's this wire here. Okay. Desert rose. I'm just going to step away from this. Desert rose is as its name indicates, it comes from the Saudi Arabia region, okay? So it's not going to require a whole lot of fertilizer in the growing season, which is coming up March, April, when it starts to set new growth. Give it one shot, maybe half the application. So if it says the stuff that you're using says, okay. Well, I would consider it to be in the succulent family.
Oh, okay, but
You could use, touch that cord by accident. Well, I got a big kick, so. All right. Yeah, you could get that. What the heck is it, the ones I have? Well, Amazon has it.
So you're saying anything that 176 that I would use for cactus?
Yeah, because it's not really, you want to fertilize it very often. And look out for scale, because it's coming. I can't read it on here. I don't have my readers with me here. Any questions regarding this? Okay, it's pretty much self-explanatory. Let me move along. Oh, by the way, anybody have a wristwatch or anything in here? Because there's no, they still can't afford to put, they can put all these jumbotrons here, but they can't put in a freaking, okay, 10:30, let me know. Just raise your hand. I may need a break. It's going on too long. All right, let's move. Okay, so we talked about this. Let's move on unless there's questions. Soluble, okay, granite crystals, yeah, okay. Yeah. Go back to what? Okay. Okay. I have a big tub, one of those big tubs, a portable tub, it's plastic. I fill it with warm water. I soak the orchids in it. I soak bromeliads in it. And I also soak the staghorn fern in it. Okay, just leave them in there, time. I put it in there for 15 minutes, an orchid, let's say. Put it in there for 15 minutes, let the bark medium soak up the water, then I take it out and I put it on, oh, I got a method. I let it drain quickly before I restore it to its place by the window. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And by the way, just the pots for orchids, because they have the extra drainage holes in the bottom, they're called azalea pots. Don't ask me why they call them azalea pots. Okay, I should have brought some, maybe next year, to show you. Liquid, okay, yeah, it, as the name's explained, already liquid. Slow release coat. Anybody run a Osmocote? Again, this stuff slow release on some of my plants that I don't normally. A substantial Rapsalis is a arbor cactus. Basically exists in the trees. Somehow the plant either gets all the way down to the ground and stayed in the trees and still has the spines and stuff like that, although more likely hairs in their case. They're an interesting plant, interesting flowers. One I have is Drunkard's Dream, yellow tiny bottles of whiskey. That's what they look like. Another one has pearls. They look like pearls. That's their flowers. Just an interesting sidebar. So I might use the slow release in that situation. Okay, first and foremost, follow directions. Okay, yeah, you could do that if you want to moisten the soil and then drain it and then put the fertilizer mix into the soil. All right, 2 to 3 months, usually because we can't get away from the fertilizer being in the potting mix. Yeah, usually March to October. In fact, I don't fertilize pretty much after September. okay? Because I want them to rest during the winter time. In the winter months, we don't have as much light, we don't have as much, so you want them to rest a little bit. I'll pick up the fertilization probably mid-March. The bird of paradise, I only fertilize once a year. If I fertilized any more, I think the thing would jump out of the pot and grab people. Repotting. All right, this is a very interesting thing. Repotting. When you take the root ball out and you got the roots all the way around, you get yourself a knife and you start cutting the roots all around the ball. Separate the roots of it. Otherwise, it'll stay in that form, and you won't be able to. If you put new soil in, it won't be able to root itself into that new soil. Case in point, when they planted the library garden out back, they lollipopped all the plants. They didn't take them out of the burrow, and they just dug a hole and threw it in, threw soil on top of it, and then mulch. So what that did essentially, when we got a nice brisk wind, I had this beautiful big root ball. That's what I call it. So I called the township because obviously I think they'd haul it back with a line and pulley and everything like that. Yeah, I came in and they chainsawed it from the root ball. Thank you. I could have done myself. Guys don't know what they're doing. Okay, but they had the best intentions in mind. So you want to make sure that when you repot, that you get a bigger pot, usually not which is wider than what you had. The reason you don't want a bigger pot for a tiny plant is because you're going to have all that excess water accumulate and no place to go, and it's going to rot the roots. Epiphytes, cactus, rapsalis, bromeliads, mosses. I've got Spanish moss, believe it or not, growing it, treated just like any other bromeliad, which is in the family. Liverworts, lichens, I don't have. Algae, I don't have. Ferns, cacti, yeah, well, some cacti are epiphytes. One you brought up, Thanksgiving cactus, Christmas cactus, they're epiphytes. Okay, and airplanes. Okay, oh, finally got the plants. Okay, so general foliage plants. Begonias, there are so many begonias out there. Rex begonia, fibrous begonias, the begonias that you start from tubers in the spring and like cool weather, just nereids, okay, which I already said are the, what's his names? African violets and their related family. Orchids, and there's so many orchids. There are known 36,000 orchids in the world. That's species only. I can't even get into the varieties of orchids that they've gotten over the years. I was up at one particular orchid, crossings of 4 different roots, and I didn't think it was spectacular, and it had no sun. When you contemplate these things back and forth, the first thing that goes is fragrance. They have no fragrance. They don't smell. Bromeliads, beautiful plants. Succulents, there are thousands of different succulents, millions probably. Ones we never even heard of. Cacti, that's interesting. That's the plural of cactus. Cacti, I have grown cacti from seed. That's an interesting. It's like 30, 40 years. I have a saguaro, only about maybe 14 inches tall. Where it's going to flower, but I don't care. Well, I care. Yeah, it's a great way to augment your collection. Is try from seed. Takes a while though. Ferns are as variable as everything. I don't have too many ferns because I don't have high humidity situation. Edwardian cases and stuff like that that have the ferns in there. That's closed. That's a closed system. In other words, it's all glass, it's closed, and you could pump up the humidity for ferns. Okay. Any particular ones that you want to talk about? I probably had every variation of these in my lifetime. Heartleaf, philodendron, my favorite now. Asparagus fern, the foliage does look like an asparagus. Schefflera, I just trimmed back the one in the library because it was huge. When I bought it, it's only 6 inches tall. It was 6 feet by 7 feet by 6 feet, so I had to trim it back. Coleus, okay, that's pretty much a plant that we put outside, although I do take cuttings and root them and then pot them up, so I'd have to constantly purchase them because they're not cheap anymore. Croton, you see a lot in Florida with these guys, multicolor stems and leaves. Devil's ivy, pothos, okay, dumb cane, English ivy, grape ivy, peace lily. Everyone knows what the peace lily looks like. White flower, spathe-like. Polka dot plant, that's a plant for an Edwardian case or bell jar. Prayer plant, passion, weed. Rubber tree. I got a rubber tree I just trimmed back at the library. It was huge. The only thing with that is you cut them back, make sure you got a tissue or a paper towel to put on the cut right away. It'll leak latex all over the place. And if it gets on your rug, you're going to hate the plant. Scented geranium. Yeah, I can bring them in. Usually I teach, Triple Oaks used to have a substantial scented geranium collection. I mean, everything smells like chocolate, you know. Do they? Swedish ivy, wandering Jew, peperoma. That's another plant for an Edwardian case or bell jar. Okay. Devil's ivy. I don't know why they call it devil's ivy. Begonias, cane-like the begonias, rhizomatous begonias, superflorens begonias. The superfloren begonias, you plant out in spring. I think they call them the wax begonias. Anybody in their landscaping? I guess you can grow inside. Most people I know don't. Tuberous begonias, that's a nice plant. Rex begonias, these guys are the peacocks of this particular genera. They come in all kinds of colors and shapes and patterns. Beautiful. I've never had too much luck, okay, with the Rex begonias. And Rex in Latin means king, so. Okay. Any questions? I'm just going to do that route because we've got a lot of lists to go through here. Any questions at all? None? Rhizomatous. The root system is very fibrous, so. And that's the rhizome, creeps along the soil underneath and throws up another plant in every direction. I can't, sempervirens, well, sempervirem in Latin, I believe, means live forever. Tuberous begonias. Put them in hanging bed, okay? They hate heat. They will die in the summertime unless you have them in a shady place. Like I said, the Rex begonia, and that's only a small sample of what the color pattern and stuff like that is. They're wonderful plants. Just nereids, there we go. Flame violet. This one at the top is what I was talking about right here. Lipstick plant, goldfish plant, flame violet, African violet, as we all know. Questions? None? 2,500 different varieties. Okay. No, they're not typical at all, except for one thing and one thing only. Oh, they draw certain insects, mealybug, things, and then they all of a sudden you stamp one out, and the sons of bitches are run up, it's eating the hell out of your plant. Okay, but no, I've known people with a lot of the African violets. I'm just not an African violet kind of guy. Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And so start out with your first statement. I bought it at ShopRite. Do you think they're going to take care of it in ShopRite? You go to these big box stores, right, in the summertime, go to a nursery or online that has a specialty for African violets. That's true too. Okay, orchids. Oh, yes. Okay, it's the large family of all flowering plants is probably the most advanced flowering plant there is. Okay, these guys are dependent on several components. You take, for instance, there are orchids in the world that are shaped like the female wasp, and they put out a pheromone to have the male wasp come along and attempt to do what male wasps do. Okay, take away pollen and go to the next orchid. This is a clever strategy. The problem is they're so specialized, if the wasp went dead, they die. Okay. There's another thing in the national parks that protects the area, which the ghost orchid in the Florida Everglades. There are no vestigial leaves. It's just a system. And then it sends out this long, huge tubular plant. And for the longest time, they couldn't figure out what fertilizes this flower. And then one of the naturalists says it has to be a moth that has a proboscis, a tongue that goes all the way up to tap the what's name, the sap, or the, what's that? Oh, it's just amazing. And they won't let anybody know except someone who is specializing in this particular area to see where they're at. And you're looking at it like it's a massive roof, that's it. But somehow it survives and sends this beautiful flower out, the ghost orchid. No vestigial leaves at all. Another vanilla orchid. Everybody like vanilla bean ice cream? Those little black dots that you're eating, that's orchid seed. Now, the best vanilla comes from Madagascar. But since they do not have a moth that fertilizes the leaves, it all has to be hand pollinated because they come from South America. The native plant, native orchid, vanilla orchid, comes from South America, where there is a native moth that fertilizes them. But when they were taken, they realized they don't have the fertilizer moth that fertilizes them, so they had to hand fertilize. That's why it's so expensive to get Madagascar. Okay, and it's an interesting situation. I love vanilla orchid ice cream. Okay, and I have brochures up here that pretty much carry all this. Catalina, that's the gigantic corsage orchid that you get. And believe it, if it is not cross-matched with anything else, I had a Catalina many years ago when it was in bloom. It was just fantastic. Cymbidium, I have one. It's also a corsage orchid, but it sends out what's the name? And there could be as many as 8 to 10 different blooms on it. Dendrobium, this is the caned orchid. Cymbidium and Dendrobium can tolerate a little bit more light situation in the Phalaenopsis. Phalaenopsis is a beautiful moth orchid, they call it, because it resembles a moth. It is in bloom now, which means that where it is native, it's summertime, so it's south of the equator. Okay. Paphiopedilum. That's the lady, almost like the lady slipper orchid. High humidity, requires high humidity and no light. Oxidium, this is another wonderful orchid, but it sends out this spike that just like almost like a hand, and all along the hand there's nothing but blooms. Okay. Oh, I'm sure there is. How long? It depends. I had one at the library that bloomed for, you're not going to believe this, 16 freaking weeks. From the time it's first spathe through its first bud opened to the time the last one dropped, counted 16 weeks. Phalaenopsis. Well, I'll tell you a good way to kill it. Want a good way to kill it? Put ice cubes on it. Do not water your plant through ice cubes, okay? Look, I want you to think about this, okay? How about if I take you and I throw you outside in a big vat of cold water? And how long do you think you're going to last in that? Okay, the same thing. These are tropical plants. Why would you want to try to freeze the roots? Because it's a lazy man's way of watering. I don't know who started that junk years ago, but huh? Oh, no, 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 no. Don't be so lazy. Get get a thing of water that you're agitated, make sure it's lukewarm, soak the plant. It will love you for it. If you throw ice cubes on it, go, all right. Who wrote those instructions? We all believe what we read, right? Okay. It may last a year, 2 years. I mean, I had one that lasted me 15 years. Everything has a lifespan. Everything's going to die. Okay. You can't keep something forever. Although some bonsai, 600-700 years old, might outlast us. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, there was a question? Okay. Okay. I'm assuming that you have a Phalaenopsis, the moth orchid. Okay. Go down from the second node, just above that second node, and you'll see it. There's cut just above that, just above. And make sure you take a pair of scissors and what we call, you're going to sterilize the scissors, okay? In other words, you're going to run them under your gas stove, you know, get them nice red hot, and dip them in water, or get alcohol or bleach, okay? And that's not to pass a virus onto another plant. So if you're going from plant to plant to cut back the stem, okay, you can do that, and it will take a while, maybe into the next cycle of bloom, but it will throw out another. I do that a lot. I do that a lot with mine. Okay. Well, you can also tell by because if the stem itself all the way down turns brown, it's done. Cut it. Okay. If it's still green, the flower spike is dead. Okay. If it's brown, cut it down. If it's green, let it be. Wow. That sounds pretty good. Okay. So that's what you're really going to carry, the Phalaenopsis, all the rest of the ones, unless you go to a specialty house. There's Linwood, New Jersey. I believe there's one down there, Route 9. Okay, to be. Now, I don't know if they're there anymore. It's been like 35, 40 years since I've been down there. But they had a spectacular orchid house. Just ungodly. I mean, you go in there and you're thinking, oh, And it's a disease. It is a disease. Once you get infected, you might wind up in a hospital somewhere. Yeah, once you get started down that path, and I do have, like, I have a dendrobium, which is named after my daughter, Jennifer Ann. I had to buy it, and it produces a nice white flower on it. Well, Jennifer, I forget, in Nordic means little white wave, so I kind of had to buy it. She's my firstborn. She's now 43. But anyway, I digress. Cymbidium, I have a cymbidium, which I took a division from somebody who wanted me to divide it up for him because it exceeded the pots. So I divided it up and I said, well, payment, I want half the plant. Oh yeah, take it, take it. I had an oxidium. It lasted a few years. I've never had a PAP. And I had a Catalina, which I said was just fragrant beyond all description. Any questions? Oh, yes, we get to the color glossies. 10:30, well, we'll leave that on. Everybody take a break. Those are the ones you're really going to come in contact with. You're not really going to get to the strike unless that's what your intent is. Have an orchid house just for that. Yes, orchid info. These things will tell you what's in the trade. Okay. I don't know. Each his own, dude. Well, learn not as sensitive or conscious or someone that's into it. If you're not into taking care of it, you know, then I would say don't bother. If someone gives you one and you want to keep it alive, that's a different story altogether. Okay, well, it's good for the Phalaenopsis, which is the one you're going to get in the trade anyway. If you go to a big box store, they got them all. You go to Sam's Club, I was in there Monday, and they had all these ones for sale, and they were cheap, like $15.99 or $17. I mean, that's your thing.
Well, it's just I'm trying to figure out how to do the different levels of humidity.
Well, I'll tell you exactly what you can do. Get yourself a shallow tray, line it with gravel, put water in there, or gather plants together. Probably the same time, gather them together and then create their own mini environment. That's another one. Okay, I don't know how that works. Okay.
I can't get up to Hank Sullivan. Although I think it's.
Well, humidity is a good thing, but then again, if you get to the point where it's 75 or 100,
Where they go there.
that's something.
I can't get on the ladder.
They just take the top off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to see, YCA.
Oh,
Colleges, colleges, and just in the world that.
we'll go over that at the end.
Is that a friend that's on my home?
You're gonna have to go back. Each once a week. Well, if they come back, I hate to back. They don't need to. They got both sections. Yeah. It's too bad. I mean, really, I mean, I've had to do that. I'll go over one oh, yeah. One thing about the flowers are very hot. Like truck lemons, those and they require some, in other words, it adds iron to the soil. Required. Citrus, cacti, something. Yeah, it's good back. Otherwise, you know, make sure, you know, I tell you what. Guy will sit there and tell you what to do. But that's not a secondary appliance. Good God. Why not? So there was probably a couple years
One thing I like about St.
and it's a plant that we call the for those types of plants. They have a toxic
talking about okay.
Yeah, they leave. And you gotta be careful. You don't take that brain like that.
In some areas, right?
Don't get it in your eyes. But there's the matter. I have a friend of I had another woman come in for a meeting the other day, one of my fellow trustees at the library, and she says, "Oh, my word." And I'm like, "What am I doing now?" I said, "It's got flower and rust all over the place." And I said, "What you doing wrong is you're not buying more, because you seem to know what you're doing. Why do you need my help?"
Yeah.
I retired 20. I retired at Captain. And once you get to that point, you're not going to go to work. These guys,
Yeah, I don't know what kind of time I do it upon, because you might have a farm. And I have it near the door, and one has a window. So it was doing fine. I said, oh, I have to fertilize. I got there from the plant food. I put the plant food in, the water, and the fish.
Now the question I have to ask you is, how much do you have in your oil?
Taking a little,
Yeah, all right.
a little excess. It was already 3 days. A little too. And then 2 days later, all of a sudden,
This is a fertilization. Take the plant,
I was thinking
put that on,
yeah.
and what you want to do, you want to flush that out of your soil. Flush it out. Okay, either that or repot.
That's what I was thinking of repotting, but then it's already in the soil.
Well, that is true. That is true.
And this is the one. About a month ago. And the so now when I repotted,
Well, the recommendation is to take a rail Well, I don't see it. It looks like a casino. It looks like a casino. But obviously,
I know it's 695, we know everything. You know, the other people, see myself, you know, the other people, right away, oh,
well, the only other thing I would suggest is let it run the course. In that, or you say this is supposed to be.
yeah, so I think they just right.
day I was in there for 3 weeks.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, but a lot of people think about, okay, what did I do?
I believe you're going out there. You ought to do like, you ever see that movie, Florian? The guy with the
Oh,
cane.
God, my heart goes out to her. Oh, come on, get out. I would too, get as far away from New York City as I could.
Take it easy.
It's what's in the tray. Now, I'll make an announcement. Are we ready to get back now? Need? Okay. All right, so this beautiful orchid right here resembles a Cattleya orchid, but it might be what we call Cattleya ex Lalea, which is a hybrid. Okay, beautiful to look at. Got typical Cattleya leaves in the back. This one is a dendrobium of some type. See that cane right there? It goes up and down. Yeah, that's a signification of a dendrobium. Okay, this one I'm not sure what is. It looks like it could be a hybrid. This resembles a Cymbidium orchid I have. Like foliage, okay, means that they could take a little bit more stronger light than the Phalaenopsis, which has the broad leaf. Same thing down here. This looks like another of a type of Cymbidium orchid. Named at the top, Dendrobium right here. Beautiful. And then look at that. Spectacular. And that's a plate that was made by a botanical artist. Probably took it out in the environs in which it occurs. Phalaenopsis, everybody knows the moth orchid. Beautiful. Another thing about Phalaenopsis, a couple of years ago, I saw a blue Phalaenopsis, and I'm like, wait a minute, they don't occur blue. So what the breeder does is he uses blue dye, okay, to get the blue to go up to the flower and make the blue flower. But then again, when next year comes, unless you do the same thing, you ain't gonna get blue flowers. Blue is a very rare color in flowers. Okay. Remember what I was trying to say something about this. Yeah, you guys took the catalogs, okay? They're very expensive. Okay, like I said, I'm not a shill for Logis. They're very expensive, but if you want a rare and unusual plant, that's where to go. Shipping is very expensive, and you're not going to get a big plant. If you look at the size, it'll say a 4-inch pot. That's not a big plant. You could wait years before you get anything out of it. But it gives you an idea of what's in the trade. Okay, these are the paps. Don't ask me to pronounce that because I have trouble with it too. Beautiful, lady slipper orchid almost. See the slipper right here? Which draws me to a point. Anybody ever see the pink lady slipper orchid that's native to New Jersey? Yeah, I'll bet you keep its location very secret, don't you? I know I do. Yeah. Well, last year I had the pleasure, one of my friends, gardening friends, said, hey, you want to see a grove of lady slipper orchids? Sure. So he took me out into the woods, which was full of oak leaves. And my God, this whole thing fenced in because he said that the deer eat the hell out of them, like lollipops. They'll just come along and eat them all. He says, so they put something all around it so he can enjoy it. But the thing about the lady slipper orchid is do not dig them up. Do not think that you could take them to your house and plant them. They won't live because they need a specific mycorrhizal bacteria, which is native to the soil. Even if you take the soil, they may not survive. They look more wonderful in the native environment than they do in your front lawn or wherever bed you want to put them in. Very hard to grow. One day, years ago, I had mulch delivered to my house. So 30, 40 years ago, I put the mulch around the bed and everything like that. And up pops a lady slipper orchid leaf. And I'm doing a rain dance. I'm thinking it's great. I didn't plant it. It just came naturally in the mulch. So I went to Lorraine Kiefer and I told her, she says, enjoy it now because it ain't coming back. And she was right. She knew it needed mycorrhizal bacteria specific for the soil, in other words, would and produce a flower. It did produce a flower, but I recognized the leaf. Because on patrol, when I was a patrolman, I found the location in Monroe Township. Will remain secret. Way down south. Okay, got out of the car, forget the reason why, and I noticed underneath the deep, dank woodland that was there, which had a lot of water around it, and mosquitoes. Around the time like May 22nd, which is when I started Monroe Township, 1974, these things popped up. It was a whole grove. But going in, you look, you enjoy, and you get out because the mosquitoes were just unbelievable. And a couple other places I found in Monroe Township that had the lady slipper orchid. But they could be 1 year you could have them, and then they disappear. It's just the way it is. But I believe in leaving things in place. You can buy pips, they call them pips, for like $60 to $100, okay? And some of them are hybrids, okay? Leave the lady slipper orchid out there. It's still surviving in the woodland. Oh, no. That big. Oh, yeah, the flower comes on. And flowers last for weeks if the deer can get them first. Or some moron that wants to dig them up, put them in his garden in the front. May 22nd, that's when I know they're in full bloom. I got that date memorized. So I go back to the gardening friend, May 22nd, and I'll go walking in the woods with him and we'll enjoy it. Okay, this is Oncidium. So I was saying about all the bloom sprays that they have. Okay. Over a lot of this. Anybody have any questions? Okay, the light leaf color. When you have a Phalaenopsis, which is what majority of people have in their homes, and they start to turn red and brown and black or whatever, that means they've been exposed to too much light. Okay. You want to move them away from the window. It's a hot window, south-facing window. So move them away. They can tolerate early morning sun and late sun because it's low in the atmosphere and you're not getting that direct hot afternoon sun. Insufficient light is the most common cause of failure to rebloom. That and not putting your orchid on a fertilization schedule. Everything that I have is on a monthly schedule. Once a month, everybody gets a little bit of fertilizer according to directions. Now you can, what they call water weekly. In other words, weekly. 1/4 strength to a gallon of water rather than full strength, and water that every week. Like that. That should do you good. Oh, there's the specialty fertilizers. I went through them, depending on what you have. Phalaenopsis, if it is 30-10-10. And you can get that on Amazon. That's a good question. If you go into Amazon and put orchid fertilizer, it'll tell you Grow More. That's it. GROW-MORE. Grow More. And you can also get the bromeliad when we go over that. The bromeliad fertilizer too, specifically to them. Avoid overwatering because we don't rot the roots. The aerial roots are, when you look at them, they're like a grayish appearance. And so when you run water over that root, aerial root, it actually is covered with a thing called vellum, okay, which is like a covering, and they will turn a bright green. And if they're color green or gray covering, they're fine. If not, and they're brown, which happens occasionally, you can cut them off, but do not cut the good growth off. It's like, what would you do if somebody cut your legs off? You think you'll be doing any walking anytime soon? All right, so yeah, eventually your medium will compost. In other words, it will break down with your weekly watering. Okay, I water every 7 to 10 days. I try to avoid watering when it's overcast or raining. Okay, don't ask me why. That's what I was told years ago. But I don't have that pleasure at the library because I go there once a week. I water. It could be a deluge outside. These guys don't seem to care. Everything grows better at the library than at my house. I don't know why. Maybe it's all the hot air. Water in the morning. Okay, with failure, especially. Okay, you want the leaves to dry out during the day. A natural indication, the plant, as you see in the plastic when you buy it, the leaves are up. Okay, natural indication when you hang, and I hang mine to stimulate the environment in which they originated from. The Phalaenopsis will actually dip down, and that's a natural thing for it to do, because what it wants to do is instinctively knowing that by dipping down, if any water comes down, it runs off and doesn't stay around to rot the crown of the plant. It's an adaptation. They're smarter than we are. And water with lukewarm water, not hot, definitely not cold, and no freaking ice cubes, please. Okay, yeah. Balanced fertilizer. I haven't seen a 20-20-20 in a long time. Like I said, it's 30-10-10. It's a formulation. Remember what I said about weekly? If you really want to do it right, you can do that. Every 7 to 10 days is a good time to water your orchids of any type. Okay. If you're going to put your orchids outside, make sure you put them in shade. Okay, you put them in full sun, they'll be dead by the end of the week. I have a dog kennel, which I have a canoe and a pram on top. Great place. I used to have an 85-foot swamp maple, and we had a derecho come through in 2020, and all the orchids were hanging off of this thing. And guess what happened? In June, acted like a sail. The derecho came through, 90-mile-an-hour wind, straight line wind. The tree came down. I went out to feed the fish in my pond. I looked over. I went, what the? I had this huge, 85-foot tall swamp maple blanketed my yard, killed everything in its path. Okay. I had stuff that I was like, but the orchids were just still hanging from it. It must have went down so slow, okay, as not to disturb that much, but it ate a 25 by 30-foot root ball that they attached to it for the shallow rooted plants. Cost me a fortune to get this thing, you know, removed. But I made it a different environmental zone. I planted with all native plants. Okay, and that's what I'm doing now. As something dies off that's a non-native plant, I replace it with a native plant or shrub or tree. Yes. I'll tell you exactly what I do. I got that big thing. I fill it up at the kitchen sink with the aerator. I put the granular fertilizer into the water, stir it around, take it out, dump it into that thing, and just set the pot ready. And since I have multiple orchids that pretty much take the same fertilizer, I just continually drain them, put them back, drain them, put them back. Yep. Just take the whole pot, put it in there. Make sure you don't get it in there. Dump it in slow, or put the pot in slow. Excuse me. Put the pot in slow so you don't push the medium out. Okay, let it set it down in there and put a timer. They got a great feature on an iPhone, which I didn't have up until last year. My kids decided, fuck your grandkids, get an iPhone, FaceTime. Now they call me. They're only 2 years old. Oh, pop. Yeah, it has a great function on here is the timer. 15, 20 minutes upon, yeah, let them soak. Doesn't do them any harm. Just make sure when you put the fertilizer in the water, you use the correct amount. Usually 1 teaspoon or 1 tablespoon per gallon of water. Most of them come in with the tablespoon inside the jar. Okay, repotting orchids. Oh, if you're an orchid enthusiast, you're probably going to throw bricks at me, but I don't really repot my orchid plants unless it's absolutely necessary. Okay, I've had many orchids over the years. Everything has a lifespan. Everything dies. I hate to be blasé about it, but that's just the way it is. When it dies, you can go to ShopRite and get one, not me. I'm sorry. I know ShopRite sells them, Walmart sells them, and Sam's Club sells them. Beautiful ones. But I have to look at them and run away because I want to buy a couple. And I don't want to do that. All right, fast draining bark-based mix. Okay. At one time, when I first started, they had redwood bark as the medium. I didn't know any better 50 years ago. Didn't know any better. And then it dawned on me becoming an environmentalist. And I said, what am I doing? He's cutting these magnificent trees down and grinding them up for fir bark mix. That's ridiculous. So and they don't have them for sale anymore. I have some orchids that are that could be mounted to what they call osmodium bark. Okay, it's they cut them from a particular fern, osmodium fern, and you can use that to mount them to, and there's a couple of ways you can do that. And I also have ones that are on the I wrapped big wire around them and they attach into the sphagnum moss. Okay, I water them maybe once every couple of days. because they dry out real quick. Okay. See? And then, you can get Phalaenopsis, well, actually, if it's in the right conditions, okay, it will bloom for 3 to 4 months, easy. And this is the time when they're all in bloom or in bud. Okay, these sheets up here are directly from the AOS.org, the American Orchid Society. I got them years ago, but if you go on the AOS.org, okay, you can probably get more updated information. Bromeliads, okay. These are tropical plants. So bromeliads include pineapple and Spanish moss, and also Tislandia, which is another bromeliad. I love it when they say in the literature, this phrase here, nothing is inexpensive anymore. You know what the price of eggs are now, or was? Okay, nothing is inexpensive anymore. But I've had a couple of bromeliads over the year, and the interesting is when they're in bloom, when the bloom dies, so does the plant. But if you're lucky, they'll send pups from the side. They all do it, except Spanish moss. I haven't seen that. They don't bloom too, not that I'm aware of. Okay, this is what I was talking about. See the vase there? It comes out of the vase itself. Okay, that'll last for months. And then at the base of the plant, where right here and over here, it might send out a pup. In fact, I think if I look close right here, there's a pup already forming. And these are so thick in South America that they could just, I hate to use the word infest, but they're all over the tree notches. And sometimes the trees get so very heavy with the extraordinary epiphytic growth that you get a nice windstorm, and Derecho comes through and take the whole tree down. Like I said, these are a essential part of nature. And the vases themselves fill with water and they stay filled, and you've got frogs that actually lay eggs in them. This is what I was telling you about, where they get most of their moisture from these trichomes. There are scales on the leaves. Tislandia, which is one of the bromeliads, air plant they used to call them. Yeah, that means you never have to feed them, you never have to water, you're sitting on, and they grow through air. Yes, they require fertilization, they require water. Of course, oh no, not another course. The ShopRite of the TV land. DC. Oh, let's say everything. Oh God. Well, they may not have scale. Yeah. Yeah. Well, after it blooms, it gets unsightly, it gets brown, and might get fungus on it. Yeah, you can cut back that. Yeah. But, if you have it mounted or something like that, the mother plant will die out to brown, like the air plants, the Tislandias. They die out, the central plant, and from the bottom, you'll have 1 or 2 pups that will come off, and then they continue off of that. If it hasn't developed a root system of its own, If you haven't developed a root system of its own, I forget, I got this in my hand. Yeah, I would say leave them alone. But eventually what'll happen, the pups will just obscure the mother. They'll continue to throw off offsets, pups. Okay, this one throws me all the time. I've never had one of these guys. I couldn't even tell you what it's like. I know that they are very, very scaly, and they have on the ends, well, they have what's called needles almost. Okay. And these occur in the tepes in South America, which are plateaus, lost world type, where they get high amount of humidity, quick drainage. Very difficult to maintain. Never had too much luck with the one I had. Tislandia, there you go. And there is the blooming stalk. Another one down here. And they can attach to trees like unbelievable. And they're not parasitic. They take nothing from its host, a tree branch or whatever that it just anchors itself to it. We do have a parasitic plant in New Jersey. Does anybody know what it is? It's outside. It's native. Yeah. Mistletoe. Mistletoe is a parasitic plant. You know, when you duck under it, you want to get kissed. Now you know it's a parasite. So after Christmas, you deep six that guy. Okay, isn't that gorgeous? And inside, right here, we tiny little bit of blue on the purple. Those are actual flowers right there. Again, it's epiphytic. In other words, it'll root itself to a substrate and not take any nutrients from it. Succulent plants, or I've never heard anybody ever refer to succulents as fat plants. Unless you feed it too much at McDonald's. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, they're good for arid regions. In other words, you don't overwater these guys. A monthly schedule for me is I might water them once a month during the wintertime and once every 3 weeks during the summertime. Fast draining soil mix. Make sure that you don't leave in the saucer water. They don't like that. There's a Sansevieria right there, or as they say now, Dracaena. Okay. And there are over 110 different varieties of Dracaena now, or Sansevieria. If you're going to divide these bad boys, it's no problem. Dump it out of the thing, dump all the soil off the roots. Find a rhizome, cut with a sterile knife. Let it callus over. In other words, let it sit open in the air for about a day or two. It'll callus. And the reason you want to do that is it's a fresh wound. Okay, you put it in soil that has a certain bacteria which are detrimental to the plant. You don't want that getting into it. It's like having a scab. You know, you cut yourself, what do? Neosporin on it, put a Band-Aid on, wait a couple days. When the skin heals a little bit, take the Band-Aid off. That's the same thing with these guys. Let it callus over. Yeah, fast drains. Okay, everybody knows what that is. All right, yucca. I'm not sure what that is. It kind of looks like another form of a yucca. Pepperoni. I had in a bell jar up at the library. Alum, that's what that is. That's alum right there. Looks like it's outside. Cacti. Okay. Believe it or not, there are some cacti that don't like a whole lot of midday sun. The more spiny they are, like this golden barrel cactus over here, the more shade it can take. Okay. The particular, this is out in direct sun. It's a Sakura cactus. And this is a cholla at the bottom. Takes a lot of full sun. The more spines that are on it, the more it gets, tolerate a high level of light in the desert, midday sun. Spines on the cactus, like these bad boys here, believe it or not, they used to be leaves. An adaptation from animals foraging on it. You know, you want an animal out there in the desert wants to eat one of these things, it's going to have a rough time. Okay. All right. The cactus family is endemic to the Americas, which it does not occur in any other, like Africa, Europe, or whatever, Asia. Except for one thing, when the tip of Africa met up with the tip of South America, a form of Raptalis, which is a epiphytic cacti, okay, somehow hopped the distance, and when it split, it remained as the only species of the cacti that represents North America or South America, North America, and Africa. It's the only surviving member in Africa. Yes, they have very shallow roots, which means that if they get a lot of water, you know what happens, they rot real quick. Epiphytic, yeah, you mentioned earlier, the Thanksgiving, Christmas, yeah, they're all members of the cactus family. And there's also a cactus that's epiphytic, it's an orchid cactus. I've had a few of them over the years, and they have beautiful flowers, wonderful flowers. Any questions? ShopRite, you know what? I shop at ShopRite, but I only get food. I don't get vegetation. Okay, all cacti are succulent, yes, which means that they don't need a lot of water. Okay. You overwater, you make them soft, and they'll die. What do you do if you get a cactus that's suddenly rotting from the bottom up? Take a sharp knife, cut just above the rot zone, okay? Let it callus off, moist sand, leave it there for a couple months, and the plant will reroot. I have a pipe organ cactus, which my brother gave me years ago, 3 foot tall. It is now over my head. I have to trim it to keep it going onto the ceiling. And I make all of it. I put it in moist sand, and I take them and I give them away to people. Okay, Staphylium called cacti by mistake. That's these guys down here. You'll know a difference between cacti and another form, which I can't think of right offhand. They look like cacti like, okay, but they don't occur in the Americas. They occur in desert country. It's what they call convergent evolution. In other words, something is adapting to the same conditions as a cacti in another continent. Okay, so it comes up with the same strategy that it does. But with those guys, if you cut that, a sap will exude out of it, and it's poisonous. Now, there is a variety of these, just escapes from the name of it, genera, that occurs in America, and that would be poinsettia. Don't ask me how it got in Mexico. Areoles, like for instance, that's usually where the spines originate on the plant itself. Spines are not thorns, but they hurt like hell when you try to hold them. I take, when I have to up hot a cacti, one technique that I do is I take paper and I roll it and I wrap it around the plant and then I kind of gently pull it out. Okay, so if you handle gloves with a cactus, them damn spines will go right through your gloves. Okay, so this is the technique that I use. And then I get the bigger pot, which, by the way, if you're going to use clay pots or anything, you're going to pot something up, soak them. Now you can put a little bit of bleach in the water you soak the pot in just to kill any kind of disease. You just rinse it out real well, but make sure you get the pot nice and moist so it doesn't draw moisture from the root, from the potting mix. And you can do that when you finally your plant dies and you take it out and you want to repot something else. Technique with the chlorine bleach. Okay, why does a cholla cactus bloom at night? Because there is a moth that fertilizes the flower. That's why. If it's during the daytime, a butterfly or even a hummingbird will fertilize the flower. And by the way, we don't have a prickly pear, but there's one native to New Jersey. I have it in my garden. Of course, I got everything. It was given to me free by Lorraine, so I took it. It comes up, has pretty yellow flowers, and then has the red fruit, which are covered in spines. So if you go to try to eat it, you know, not a good thing to eat. Ferns. Okay, ferns. I've had some good luck and some bad luck with ferns. I only have one fern, and it's in a case where it gets high humidity. Anybody have questions about ferns? Yes, they'll shrivel up. They'll shrivel up and they think that they're dead. Okay. They propagate by pretty much the pads falling off, rerooting. Okay. I have them outside. Yeah. They survive. They survive. Okay. Another thing that they like, rapidly draining mix. Okay. So you want to make sure they put it, but high humidity. There's one that'll come up, I think it's in a rabbit's foot fern. Looks like a rabbit's foot. Mother Nature's clever, isn't it? Notice I said Mother Nature, not Father Nature. If it was Father Nature, it'd all be dead by now. Okay, so someone asked me about humidity for an area that doesn't have humidity. This is one thing you can do, is put the pot on gravel or marbles in a saucer full of water. Another technique that you use for high humidity or keep humidity in the area, like a microenvironment, is have all similar plants in the same area. You don't want to have the bottom of a pot sucking up the moisture, so keep that elevated off the gravel or marbles. Okay. They recommend time release fertilizer for ferns. I have ferns in my garden outside, all kinds from Osmodium fern, regal fern, king fern. I got deer tongue fern. When I was in my fern connect, yeah, go through cycles. Okay, holly fern, leatherleaf fern, bird nest fern. That's what I've got. That's all that I have in the fern family. That's it. And it's a small one. Rabbit foot fern. Okay. Now, they don't have flower. Ferns are very ancient. What they have is a prophallus on the underside of the leaves, and this are spores. They produce by spores. There's no fertilization necessary by an insect or anything else. The spores burst, and they will find their way around your garden in the shade. When the tree fell down, it also took down the pergola, which protected my ferns. And they've been exposed for the last 2 years to nothing but direct sunlight. So I can't afford to put up another pergola. So they are going through some hostile times right now. All right. The Japanese use it for what the heck is that flower arrangement that they do? Beautiful flower arrangements. What is it called? Ikebana. Bird's nest fern. They attract scale like no tomorrow. Scale loves this plant, loves it to death. There's your rabbit's foot fern. So the same about a rabbit's foot, nice and furry. Oh, now we get to insects. Aphids. You're not going to find too many aphids indoors, but if you put your plant outside and when you want to bring it in, make sure you spray it down with water. That will kill all the aphids. Okay. They usually won't survive inside your house. Conditions are not met. Wash off with water, insecticidal soap. Good way to go. Houseplant insecticide, treat outside. Honeydew, curling and wilting of the leaves, mold. That does occur. I've seen that myself over the years. Aphids are soft-bodied. Antlions, which happen to be the pupa stage of the ladybug, they eat aphids like no tomorrow. They call them antlions, or they call them aphid lions. They'll go after it. Aphids like no tomorrow. So when you bring your plant in from the outside, inspect it thoroughly to make sure you're not bringing some, vermin in with it. Scale. Yeah. I had at one time at the library, native ferns which were this tall. They were gorgeous, but they were so congested with foliage. By the time they noticed it, the leaves were shiny and sticky. That's the excrement that the scale does. And ants love that. So they'll help them out, to farm them on the inside of your house. Okay. These guys are so highly infected on the interior. The first thing I did, ran them outside to the dumpster and threw them away. There was no saving them. Okay. Certain plants will be like a magnet to these guys. Once you get an infestation and you can't control it with a tiny dot here and there, they look like brown or tan dots. Okay. If they're out of control, deep six the plants, buy another one. Because you could spray with insecticidal soap and they say, give me some more please. Discards really infect the plants. There you go. Mealy bugs. These are interesting things. Somehow they made their way into the library. I've had to deal with them for years. I watch the plant. I take a Q-tip, dip it in isopropyl alcohol, and just dot them. It kills most of it. And just keep on top of it. It's just maintenance. That's what you have to do. But what happens is people come into the library, don't know where they've been from. They could have had an infected plant at home. These things will actually, with air currents, come off the plant, okay, almost like a spider in the wind, land on your clothes, and then come to the library and drop it off. Thank you very much. Okay, spray with insecticidal soap if you can find it. Big box stores don't seem to stock anymore. I don't know why. Maybe they just want you to buy another plant from them. Planned obsolescence. All right. White flies. I never had this problem, but if you take a sticky pad and put a yellow sticky pad and hang it, they're drawn to the color, and they'll also stick themselves to the sticky trap. That's how you can control these guys. Insecticidal soap, all that other stuff you could do too. Tiny white moths. Spider mites. I've had a few of these. Just take them outside if you can, or take them to your tub and spray it real well. And then you could put insecticidal spray on them if you want to keep them. They're actually in the arachnid family. They're not insects because they have 8 legs. You guys had insects, right? Wonderful. Where will we be without them? Not a whole lot better. Insects are integral to our natural environment, whether you like it or not. You keep them under control, but you don't want to eradicate them because they're part of the food web. And that's one thing I learned with this native plant society that I joined, is that they're all part of it. If you love birds, and I do, I feed them every day, but in the spring when they have a clutch, okay, what do you think they're eating? Caterpillars, bugs, stuff like that. You eradicate all the caterpillars because they look unsightly because they eat the leaves of your plants. Guess what? Birds have nothing to eat, so their offspring die. They starve to death. It's all, why do we want to overspray everything? I'm talking about outside. Inside, not so much. Why do we want to overspray everything? To kill what? Because we don't like that there's a hole. Really? You're that anal over that? Leaf spots. Okay, lady came up with an example. Unfortunately, I think it might be that she put too much fertilizer. I recommended that she either run the in the tub, because you don't want to do this outside. Of course, tomorrow it's going to be 68, so you may just keep putting water into the root system, let it drain, and put it back and see how that works. Otherwise, you're going to have to go through that thing where I talked about the mango earlier. She had this kind of damage on the leaves. Puckering, yellowing, white. And that's a Dieffenbachia, by the way. Gum cane. All right, self-explanatory. Scorch. This soluble salts you might have a problem with. The only thing I can recommend, right now we're in a cycle where you have a lot of, so it's good. Let the rainfall bring it in, let it warm up. Add boiling water to it to warm it up. Okay, feed your plants. If you've got the well salt to soften the water. And this part right here, salt crystals, not salt crystals, but you get that crust on the outside of an unglazed pot. Okay, I think it's a nice patina. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me that I got a little bit of stuff on the outside. Okay. Number one thing right here, read the package. More is not necessarily better. Make sure the container has adequate drainage. Leach with clean water if over-fertilizing thought to be the problem. Leaf drop. Well, what did I say earlier? The hibiscus, the tropical hibiscus, people who want to bring it in, get the leaf drop. That's because you change the environment in which it grew. They grow luxurious out in sunlight, beautiful flowers. But then in the wintertime, when you drag it in, it's going to change the environment. It's not getting what it used to get outside. In the colonial times, they used to have, call it an orangery. It's a place that was like a sunroom that they put oranges and lemons and things like citrus fruit outside during the colonial days. And then when winter approached, they put it inside, okay, to save them because they're not frost hardy or whatever. Because they wanted, why do you think they call the British sailors limeys? Anybody know? Because they eat limes, because people would have the disease that would get from lack of vitamin C. Okay, their teeth would fall out, their skin would turn scurvy. That's what it was, scurvy. Okay, abrupt changes from sunny locations to dark locations. Leaf yellowing, but they got a lot of leaf there. Okay. When you decide to find out why your leaves are turning yellow, make sure you check out whether it's overwatered, underwatered, needs to be repotted, or that you don't have it through a heat source or a cold source like by a front door where it's getting blasted with the cold weather. I mean, you know, make sure you eliminate those first before you go on to something else. Go through like a, what the hell is it called? You go through a chart, answer the question yes, move on to the next one, answer no, that's fine. Ah, I'm glad I got intelligent people in the audience. Thank you for your attention. Any questions? Yes, once it gets used to. It's like when you come in from the cold out there, what do? You take your outer clothing off because you don't want to sweat to death. It's the same thing with them. They're going to change. Yeah. They're not as adaptable as we are. All plants stay in one place. How long has it been in?